In the heart of New York, behind closed doors and shuttered windows, a war is being waged. A war not with guns, but with secrets. The FBI, armed with the latest in surveillance technology, believes they can listen to every whispered plot, every quiet command, every deal made in smoke-filled rooms. They think they are invisible, untouchable. But the Mafia has a way of turning every advantage into a trap, every shadow into a shield. They don't just hide, they play, they joke, they misdirect. And in doing so, they make fools of the very men who think they are in control. This is the story of how America's lawmen learned, the hard way, that the mob always hears what it wants them to hear, and never what they're supposed to. Chapter 1. Bugs in the Room. We're going to know what they're saying before they even know what they're planning. It is the early 1950s. New York hums with a restless energy. Neon lights bounce off the wet streets. Smoke curls from restaurant kitchens, and the hum of traffic masks' secrets hidden in plain sight. Inside dimly lit offices, the FBI convenes. Papers are stacked, telephones ring, and agents speak in hushed tones about the new weapon in their war against organized crime, the wiretap. Agent Frank Kennelly leans over a desk cluttered with microphone prototypes. If we plant these in the right spots, we can hear every word, every instruction, every deal. He's not exaggerating. The Bureau has invested heavily in listening devices, tiny, near invisible, and sensitive enough to capture whispers over a crowded bar. Restaurants, private clubs, even a few clandestine homes are earmarked for infiltration. The goal: penetrate the seemingly impenetrable Mafia network. Across town, in the shadows of a second-floor restaurant, the mob is already plotting. Joe Valachi, a low-level soldier of the Genovese family, sips espresso while exchanging subtle nods with associates. To the untrained eye, it's just coffee and conversation. But every word carries weight, every pause is deliberate. And unknown to the agents watching, there is a keen awareness of surveillance. The first bugs are installed with painstaking care. Tiny wires are hidden behind baseboards, inside cigar boxes, beneath lampshades. FBI technicians note each successful installation in meticulous reports. Bug number 7 operational. Clear audio. No interference. Reads one dispatch. Yet, the reality on the ground is already complicated. Valachi and his associates have begun noticing anomalies. A slightly too clean table where the microphones are planted. A waitstaff member who lingers unnaturally long, the faint hum of electrical equipment behind a wall panel. "So they think they can listen?" whispers Carlo, a Kappa regime, to Valachi. Let them hear what they want to hear." The first few weeks produce mixed results. Some conversations are mundane, orders for food, complaints about a late shipment, idle chatter about family. Others, more crucial, are fragmented, heavily coded, or intentionally misleading. The FBI's agents, listening through headphones in a makeshift office on the Upper East Side, furrow their brows. "I don't understand," mutters one. "They're talking about a shipment of, what, peaches? Are we missing something?" The humor isn't lost on the mob. Carlo recounts with a sly grin the reaction of an FBI agent trying to decipher a conversation about a box of peaches. To the mob, peaches are code for a small arms shipment. To the FBI, it's a fruit order. It's a subtle game, a war of wits conducted over wires. Still, there are victories for the Bureau. Occasionally, a genuine lead surfaces, a whispered location, a hint of a meeting, a name mentioned in passing. Agents rush to verify, shadow, or intercept, but often, the lead dissolves into nothing. Meetings are rescheduled, addresses turn out to be abandoned warehouses, and names are aliases that vanish when pursued. Valachi's role grows increasingly delicate. As a soldier with access to sensitive conversations, he is both a participant and an observer. He knows the FBI is listening, but only in part. He speaks plainly at times, deliberately misleading, letting his own organization gauge what the agents can and cannot hear. "Let them hear our voice," he murmurs one evening, "but never our plan." By the end of the first month, the Bureau is both emboldened and frustrated. The technology is effective when it works, but the human element, The cunning, the humor, and the awareness of the mob complicate every success. One report reads, "Audio clarity excellent, content unintelligible." At the heart of it, the battle is not one of machines, but of minds. The FBI's microphones are sophisticated. They capture sound with precision. But intelligence is not just about hearing. It is about understanding. And the Mafia, masters of secrecy, ambiguity, and misdirection, have made sure understanding is nearly impossible. In the quiet hours, agents reflect on the paradox. "We can hear them, but it's like listening to shadows," notes one, staring at the blinking red light on a recording device. "We're here, and yet we're not." Meanwhile, Valachi, Carlo, and their peers laugh quietly over espresso and cigars, fully aware of the invisible audience. Each word is a puzzle, each pause a riddle. To them, the FBI's intrusion is not a threat, it is a challenge. And in this early stage of the cat-and-mouse game, the mob is already proving that the rules of engagement are theirs to define. "They think they're inside our world," Carlo says, leaning back in his chair. "But they're only seeing what we allow. Every whisper, every command, it's a story we tell them. And in that story, we are always in control." The first chapter of this war closes not with a gunshot, but with a wire humming quietly behind a wall, listening intently, and being deceived every second of the way. Chapter 2. Voices in Code. We have audio, but it might as well be a foreign language. New York, late 1950s. The city never sleeps, and neither does the quiet war between law enforcement and the underworld. The FBI has succeeded in planting bugs in several mob hangouts. But a new problem emerges. The mob doesn't speak plainly. Joe Valachi sips espresso in a shadowed corner of a backroom cafe. Across from him, Carlo sketches diagrams on a napkin. Every conversation, every sentence, is laced with meaning only the initiated can decode. To outsiders, the words sound trivial, even foolish. To those who understand, they are instructions, warnings, and strategies encoded in everyday speech. "You see," Carlo murmurs, tapping the napkin. "To them we are talking about cherries and peaches, but we are planning more than the Bureau can imagine." At FBI headquarters, agents listen intently. "Cherries and peaches? Are these shipments or confruit? Someone clarify." One shouts into the phone. The line goes silent, and the confusion spreads. The mob has developed techniques to manipulate surveillance. Slang, metaphors, poetry, casual jokes, and intentional pauses transform a straightforward conversation into a labyrinth. When FBI technicians attempt to transcribe the audio, the result is incomprehensible, full of gaps and ambiguities. One agent shakes his head over headphones. "I don't get it. They're talking about going to the park, but I think it's a meeting, or a shipment, maybe a code. I don't know." Meanwhile, Valachi explains to a junior associate, "Speak plainly enough to sound natural, but never plainly enough to be understood. They think they hear us, but they never hear the truth." The mob also uses humor as a weapon. In one overheard conversation, an agent reports, "They're laughing about a cat chasing a dog, possibly a meeting." In reality, the cat refers to a new recruit being watched, and the dog is an FBI agent being deceived. Every word is a calculated risk, a double layer of meaning. FBI field reports quickly pile up, filled with transcripts of ordinary chatter that frustrates analysts. One report reads, "Numerous conversations captured. Content appears mundane. No actionable intelligence at this time. The human mind proves far more difficult to penetrate than wires or microphones. Mobsters anticipate the patterns of FBI surveillance and adapt in real time. If a conversation seems overheard, the topic shifts. If an agent visits a location, the mob stages decoy meetings elsewhere. Each move is subtle but deliberate, as if the FBI's ears are always a step behind. Valachi often tests the boundaries. He'll speak in apparent nonsense for minutes, deliberately drawing agents deeper into confusion. Occasionally, he drops a kernel of truth, a breadcrumb to keep the FBI convinced of their progress, only for it to lead nowhere. "They think they have the map," Carlo says one evening, watching agents scramble over false leads. "But they are walking in circles. Every turn they take is the one we intended. The FBI tries to counter with linguists and analysts, attempting to decode slang and metaphor. They take notes, compile dictionaries, and run patterns. But the effort is Sisyphean. Every breakthrough is temporary, every insight incomplete. Even when agents catch fragments of real intelligence, the mob immediately adjusts. Names change, schedules shift, and instructions are reworded in new codes. One report notes a meeting scheduled at 8 p.m. in a basement. Agents arrive to find only a social club hosting a harmless gathering. By mid-chapter it becomes clear. The war is psychological as much as technical. The FBI can hear words, but they cannot grasp the context. The mob has transformed ordinary speech into a weapon. One agent confides in a colleague, "I feel like we're eavesdropping on ghosts. They're talking to us, but they're not talking to us. We're here, but we're not." The mob thrives on this confusion. Meetings are held in plain sight, yet every instruction remains hidden in code. A joke about a dog is a warning. A comment about fruit is an order. A casual story about a family member is a strategy session. Valachi reflects, "The Bureau listens, but they do not understand. They hear sound, we hear opportunity." As the chapter closes, the tension escalates. The FBI has the tools, but not the key. They can record, they can listen, they can transcribe. But understanding is another matter entirely. The mob is not just avoiding detection, they are orchestrating a performance, a grand play designed to keep their listeners in the dark. "Every word we speak is a step in a dance," Carlo says quietly, lighting a cigar. "They watch our feet, but they cannot follow the rhythm." The wires hum silently behind walls, capturing sound with perfect clarity. But clarity alone is not enough. The human mind, cunning and adaptable, has made sure of that. The mob's voices in code echo through the city, a reminder that intelligence is not just about hearing, it is about comprehension. And comprehension in this game belongs only to those who speak it fluently. Chapter 3. The Art of the Bluff. Sometimes the best way to win is to make them think they already have. The city is alive with rumors, whispers, and carefully crafted misdirection. The FBI has become accustomed to wires, recordings, and partial intelligence. But the mob has learned that deception is its most effective weapon. In a high-rise office on the west side, Lucky Luciano leans back in a chair, cigarette smoke curling around his face. A junior associate fidgets nearby, notebook in hand. Luciano's eyes, calm but calculating, sweep the room. "They think the bugs are catching every word," he says almost to himself. "Let's make them think they're catching more than they are." The plan is simple in theory but elegant in execution. Meetings are staged with apparent importance. Addresses are given to FBI informants that lead nowhere. Discussions are deliberately loud, precise, and seemingly actionable. But every detail is false. Every instruction is a bluff. Meanwhile, FBI analysts pore over the transcripts from the latest wiretaps. "They're talking about a shipment arriving tonight at the docks," one agent says. "We have enough to intercept, finally." Hours later, agents stake out the supposed location. Boxes sit in silence. No men, no pickups, no deals. The informant is nowhere to be found. Frustration bubbles. Back in the mob's private office, Luciano chuckles as he watches agents' movements through a network of contacts. "They're dancing to a tune we wrote," he says. "Every step, every glance, they think they lead. But we lead them." The art of the bluff extends to people as much as operations. When the FBI believes a soldier is a low-level informant, the mob uses him as bait. He delivers misleading directions, casual remarks, and small pieces of truth mixed with lies. Agents follow him eagerly yet never reach the real operation. Meyer Lansky, a mastermind of financial acumen, adds his own layer to the deception. Meetings about casino investments and shipments are intentionally overheard. Agents record the conversations, but the numbers, addresses, and names are coded or outright false. Even when the FBI thinks they are capturing real intelligence, they are often studying a mirage. Valachi observes this from the inside. He notes how carefully his superiors orchestrate each interaction with law enforcement. "It's not just misdirection," he murmurs. It's performance. They want them to feel smart, to feel in control. That's when we strike. A specific operation illustrates the cunning. The FBI receives intelligence about a supposed arms shipment from New Jersey to Brooklyn. They follow the tip, mobilize agents, and set up surveillance. Meanwhile, the mob has arranged a small visible transfer of crates filled with harmless supplies, a staged event. The agents capture everything on tape, convinced they have evidence of illegal activity. When they report back, headquarters is impressed. Yet the shipment is meaningless. The real operation is weeks away, moved through a different route entirely. The Bureau has records, photos, and hours of surveillance, but none of it counts. Every resource expended has been carefully manipulated. Even the language of the bluff is poetic. The mob will drop phrases like, "The moon rises late tonight," knowing that to the uninformed, it is nonsense. But within the family, it signals timing, location, and priority. FBI agents, listening through wires, record it dutifully, only to puzzle over its meaning. Agent Frank Kennelly expresses his frustration in a private memo. "We have so much material, yet it's as if they are always one step ahead. We hear, we record, we plan, and yet the outcome is never as expected." Luciano watches the city lights flicker outside his office window, reflecting on the FBI's blind spots. "They believe technology gives them power," he says, "but power is in knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to make them believe it matters." The bluff is psychological. Agents, hungry for results, are easy prey. When presented with a lead, they assume it is real. When they see movement, they assume importance. The mob exploits these assumptions repeatedly. Each success builds confidence in the FBI's own methods, while simultaneously steering them deeper into the illusion. Valachi notes the subtle mastery of timing. A conversation about a delivery at 10 p.m. may be staged in a room full of decoys. At the same time, the real activity occurs at 2 a.m. across town, unnoticed and unrecorded. Agents, tied to the wires, never witness it. By the chapter's end, it is evident. The FBI's best-laid plans are being manipulated at every turn. Each step the Bureau takes is anticipated, each reaction accounted for, each intelligence-gathering attempt absorbed into a grand game. The mob does not merely hide its operations, it shapes them to create false victories for its pursuers, a kind of controlled chaos designed to mislead, exhaust, and frustrate. "They listen to everything we say," Carlo says, swirling his drink. "Yet they understand nothing. That is the art. That is the power." The wires hum quietly behind walls, capturing every word with perfect fidelity, yet failing to capture the truth. The Mafia has not only evaded detection, they have weaponized the FBI's own curiosity against them. In the dance of deception, the law is always a beat behind. Chapter 4. Public as a Playground. Sometimes the best hiding place is the place everyone can see. The streets of New York are bustling, indifferent to the invisible war waged in their midst. Cafes overflow with patrons, sidewalks hum with chatter, and neon signs blink in the twilight. To the casual eye, life goes on. To the trained ear, there are patterns, movements, and hidden meanings. The FBI has been recording the Mafia for months. Wiretaps, bugs, informants, and surveillance teams have captured hours of conversation. They think they know the patterns. They think they can predict meetings, shipments, and instructions. They are wrong. Carlo leans against a park railing, observing a small group of FBI agents hiding in the shadows, binoculars pressed to their eyes. He laughs quietly. "Do they really think they are unseen?" he asks Valachi, who is seated nearby, pretending to read a newspaper. A meeting is underway. 3 soldiers discuss shipments, timing, and personnel. But to the agents watching, it appears to be nothing more than a casual gathering. The mob has chosen a public park for a reason. The agents, hidden behind trees and benches, are glaring, tense, convinced that every word holds intelligence. Valachi notes every reaction. "They see what we want them to see," he murmurs. "Every glance, every gesture. It's part of the story." The Mafia has developed a sophisticated playbook for public deception. Meetings are staged with casual gestures and obvious body language. They speak loudly, occasionally exaggerating motions, just enough to draw attention. If an agent approaches, they wave, smile, even joke. "Hey, suit, lost your way?" "Lost." In one case, an agent writes in his report, "Observed 3 men in a park discussing shipments. Appears legitimate. Words and gestures suggest coordination." In reality, the discussion is deliberately misleading. The actual meeting, discussing important matters, occurs weeks later in a private room unnoticed. The mob thrives on this audacity. A casual conversation about a dog at a nearby bench can signal a meeting, a shipment, or a change in plans, or it can be complete nonsense. The FBI cannot tell which is which. Every observation is suspect, every assumption potentially fatal to understanding. Even seemingly mundane activities become tools of misdirection. Soldiers purchase groceries, walk dogs, or enjoy coffee at a bustling cafe, always aware of nearby agents. Each movement is calculated. If an FBI car parks across the street, the mobsters change course slightly, always visible but never revealing. One agent vents in frustration. "We can't move without them seeing us, but nothing they do makes sense. Every lead is either false or incomplete. It's like watching shadows play in sunlight." Luciano observes the city from a hotel window, a small smile on his lips. "They think the shadows hide the truth," he says. "We hide the truth in the light." Public appearances also serve to reinforce the mob's psychological advantage. By demonstrating boldness, talking openly on the street, meeting in visible locations, they instill doubt and uncertainty. Agents cannot predict when a conversation is genuine and when it is staged. The FBI begins second-guessing their own methods, wondering if the information they are capturing is meaningful or merely theater. The brilliance of this approach lies in its subtlety. No weapons, no overt threats, just movement, presence, and a careful understanding of perception. The mob manipulates attention, creating the illusion of visibility while concealing the real action elsewhere. Every observed lead becomes a puzzle that agents cannot solve. Valachi notes the reaction of one young FBI agent who attempts to follow a soldier walking down a crowded street. "He thought he was sneaking," Valachi says, smirking. "But we wanted him to see exactly that. He's convinced he's invisible. That's how we play him." The FBI, despite experience and training, begins to doubt itself. Reports pile up describing meetings that appear routine, streets that seem ordinary, gestures that are meaningless. But every observation is filtered through the mob's control. Agents cannot trust their eyes, their ears, or their instincts. As night falls, the park empties. Agents retreat to their cars, exhausted and frustrated, certain they are missing something crucial. Meanwhile, the mob lingers, finishing their discussion quietly in a nearby cafe. To the agents, it appears the conversation never existed. To the mob, it accomplished everything they intended. "The streets are our stage," Carlos says as he lights a cigar. "We perform, and they applaud, thinking they understand. But the story is ours alone." The chapter closes on the hum of city life, indifferent to the secret battles waged on sidewalks and benches. Every wire hums quietly, every agent takes notes, and yet the truth remains elusive. The Mafia has proven that even in plain sight, it can remain unseen, turning the public into a playground for deception and leaving the FBI chasing ghosts in the light. Chapter 5. Money talks, bugs, listen. They can hear the words, but the meaning is mine. Las Vegas, 1960s. The desert city gleams with neon lights and the soft hum of slot machines. Behind the glitz, however, lies a network of financial cunning that even the FBI struggles to decipher. While agents have successfully planted bugs and captured hours of conversation, the mob's financial operations are a different kind of maze, a place where sound alone cannot reveal truth. Meyer Lansky sits in a private office overlooking a casino floor, calculating numbers on a pad. He speaks quietly to an associate, deliberately loud enough for a hidden microphone to catch. "The shipment will arrive at the docks tomorrow, 2 trucks full." The agents monitoring the feed lean forward eagerly. This is it, the evidence they've been waiting for. But Lansky smiles faintly. There are no shipments. The trucks are decoys. The conversation, recorded in crystal-clear audio, is a ruse. Every word captured by the FBI leads them down a path intentionally constructed to confuse and misdirect. Across the city, agents scramble to trace phantom shipments, contact informants, and stake out imaginary delivery points. Their reports arrive at headquarters with confidence. Possible arms shipment, following 2-truck convoy, verification in progress. Weeks later, the entire lead collapses. No convoy exists. No shipment occurs. The Bureau's energy has been spent chasing a mirage. The mob's financial ingenuity extends beyond staged operations. Casinos, nightclubs, and legitimate businesses become both cover and currency. Transactions are structured to look ordinary, even mundane. Money flows through shell corporations, coded accounts, and multi-layered investments, all designed to be legally defensible. Yet behind this veneer lies enormous wealth, funneled into ventures known only to the family. Valachi observes the sophistication firsthand. They talk numbers like children talk stories, he says. We see words, we hear amounts, but the truth is hidden beneath layers of performance. Even when the FBI believes it has uncovered a financial pattern, the mob adapts instantly. A transaction appears suspicious today, only to be rerouted tomorrow. Meetings are held under the guise of legal consultations, and casual conversation in offices is laced with codes only initiates can decode. To the agents, every lead seems plausible, every record a breakthrough, but they are only seeing what the mob wants them to see. One FBI report reads, "Suspected illicit casino funds traced to corporate accounts. Activity appears legitimate, but under investigation." To the Bureau, this is progress. To Lansky and his partners, it is theater. Every inquiry, every investigation, every attempt to follow the money strengthens the illusion of legality. The mob even toys with the psychology of the agents. A casual remark. The shipment of oranges will be late. Might trigger days of scrutiny. The FBI moves surveillance teams, dispatches field agents, and cross-checks records, unaware that the words have no real significance. Every successful observation makes the Bureau feel more competent, yet it is precisely the competence that has been manipulated. At a quiet office in Brooklyn, Carlo explains the philosophy. We let them hear the truth only when it is useless. Otherwise, we speak what they want to hear. Every dollar, every number, every shipment, they think they have the map. But the map is ours to redraw at will. Even high-ranking officials cannot fully grasp the scale. The Mafia's wealth is immense, yet its visibility is minimal. Casinos produce profits, yet records point to ordinary gains. Investments in hotels and restaurants appear above board, yet the real capital moves through hidden channels. Surveillance might capture a conversation about a payment, but the payment itself is a fraction of what actually changes hands and often goes undetected. The FBI attempts to deploy accountants and financial analysts, but even these experts struggle. Without contextual knowledge, legal structures and coded transactions are opaque. An agent listening to a wire hears 2 crates, shipment at 8, and files a report. An accountant reviewing records sees ordinary purchases. Neither sees the truth. Valachi notes the brilliance of Lansky's design. The Bureau listens to everything, yet understands nothing. They think they're inside the operation. They're not even at the door. By the chapter's end, the pattern is clear. The FBI's tools, wiretaps, surveillance, informants, are powerful, yet insufficient against cunning financial architecture. Words can be captured, sounds can be recorded, but money, like shadows, moves in ways that evade understanding. Luciano, observing from afar, reflects. They have microphones, cameras, men in every corner. And yet, they cannot touch a penny that belongs to us. They can watch us speak, but they cannot comprehend our actions. That is the advantage we hold. The chapter closes with the soft clinking of coins and the hum of slot machines. Every wire hums quietly in apartments and offices, capturing every word with perfect fidelity. Yet, for all their listening, the FBI cannot follow the true flow of wealth. In this game, money talks, but the bugs merely listen, and the Mafia remains a step ahead. Chapter 6. The Informant That Fooled Everyone. I knew the Bureau was listening, but they never knew what to believe. Joe Valachi sits in a dimly lit room, cigarette smoke curling lazily around his head. He is a soldier of the Genovese family, a man who has lived his life between loyalty and fear. To the FBI, he is a key source, a window into the otherwise impenetrable world of organized crime. To the mob, he is a man of action, trusted with sensitive operations. And in the shadowed spaces between, Valachi walks a fine line, one that will fool everyone at different times. The Bureau relies on him heavily. Agents take meticulous notes from his reports, cross-referencing each conversation, location, and name. They believe they are gaining unprecedented insight. Valachi's approach is subtle. He reveals fragments of truth, details small enough to appear genuine, but carefully shields the most sensitive operations. He peppers his information with exaggeration, ambiguity, and occasional misdirection. Every piece of intelligence he provides has a dual purpose: to satisfy the Bureau's hunger for knowledge and to maintain the trust of his family. One evening, an agent notes in a transcript, Valachi confirms a meeting at 8 p.m., location unknown, details unclear, further verification required. The ambiguity is deliberate. Valachi knows that confirmation without clarity keeps the Bureau active, but never fully informed. Inside the mob, Valachi maintains his cover. He listens carefully, observes patterns, and internalizes secrets. He sees Carlo and other capo regimes orchestrate operations with a level of coordination that even the Bureau cannot hope to track fully. Yet he is careful to act as if he is a loyal soldier, never raising suspicion. I had to give them enough to keep them interested, he reflects, but never enough to ruin anyone or myself. The game intensifies when the FBI tries to act on the information Valachi provides. They deploy agents, stake out addresses, and prepare surveillance operations. Often the targets are decoys, carefully orchestrated to test both the Bureau and the informant. Valachi reports the truth, but the mob has anticipated these moves. Agents may follow leads for days, only to discover nothing actionable. At one meeting, Valachi speaks plainly about a shipment arriving at the docks at dawn. Agents take note, radio headquarters, and mobilize personnel. The shipment exists, but it is entirely legitimate, a routine delivery unrelated to criminal activity. The Bureau believes they have discovered an operation. In reality, they have been drawn into a controlled exercise, a subtle demonstration of the Mafia's psychological dominance. In private moments, Valachi confesses the tension of the dual life. You live like this long enough, you start to forget which side you're really on. Every word is a test, every glance a challenge. And the Bureau, they trust you, even as they are being fooled. The Bureau's reliance on Valachi underscores a harsh reality. Even the most skilled surveillance cannot fully penetrate a human network. Wires can record sound, cameras can capture images, and reports can compile data, but understanding requires context, intuition, and trust. And in this space, Valachi is masterful, providing just enough to guide, distract, and mislead. Luciano, Lansky, and Carlo are aware of his role, but rather than acting in anger or suspicion, they observe, adjust, and continue operations with subtlety. The mob understands that an informant can be useful if managed correctly, a source of controlled leaks, a tool for shaping FBI perception. An FBI agent reviewing one of Valachi's reports mutters, "He's giving us everything, but somehow we're still blind. I don't get it." That is the essence of Valachi's value. He is a bridge that connects two worlds without fully revealing either. Every revelation has a shadow. Every confession has a boundary. The Bureau believes they are seeing the structure of the Mafia, but Valachi ensures that the picture is incomplete, fragmented, and at times, misleading. In this delicate balance, danger is omnipresent. One misstep could cost Valachi his life. One careless disclosure could bring down not just him, but others. And yet, he continues, navigating the treacherous landscape of loyalty, survival, and deception. They hear what I tell them, he says quietly, but they never hear the story as it really is. And that is how you stay alive. As the chapter closes, it becomes clear. The Mafia's power lies not only in brute force, intimidation, or wealth, but in mastery of perception. Through Valachi, They demonstrate the ultimate lesson, that even those who appear to infiltrate their world can be subtly guided, misled, and used. The FBI believes they have a key. They believe they hold the truth. In reality, the mob has ensured that the key fits only a lock of their choosing. Every bug, every wire, every report, all are pieces in a game where only one side fully understands the rules. Chapter 7. Counter-Strike. Sometimes you have to feed the enemy exactly what they expect, and nothing more. New York, 1965. The streets are slick with rain, reflecting neon lights and the constant hum of the city. The FBI has spent years listening, recording, and compiling intelligence. Agents believe they are on the verge of penetrating the Mafia's network. But the mob has learned that knowledge itself can be weaponized. Carlo meets with his captains in a quiet basement office, dimly lit and far from the prying eyes of the public. They think they're catching everything, he says, tapping a stack of papers. So let's give them exactly what they expect. The plan is precise. Agents receive reports, recordings, and observations that appear valuable. Meetings, shipments, financial transfers, all seem legitimate and actionable. But each is carefully staged, designed to mislead. Some operations are entirely fabricated, while others are minor events amplified to appear crucial. The FBI, confident in their surveillance, pours resources into monitoring these false leads. One agent reviewing a wiretap notes, possible high-level meeting scheduled for Tuesday. Locations confirmed. Participants include known associates. Hours later, agents arrive to find nothing. No meeting, no participants, only empty rooms and chairs set in anticipation of the Bureau's presence. Meanwhile, the mob continues its real operations elsewhere, undetected and unhindered. The contrast between perception and reality is deliberate, a psychological blow to law enforcement. Carlo explains to Valachi, "Let them feel they are winning. Their confidence is the best disguise for our actions." The counter-strike extends beyond simple misdirection. The mob begins to plant hints that suggest rivalries or internal conflicts, prompting the FBI to investigate potential betrayals or disputes that do not exist. Agents chase ghosts, believing they have uncovered critical intelligence, while the Mafia maintains full control of the situation. Luciano, observing from his office in Midtown, reflects on the sophistication of the plan. They've been listening to us for years. Now we listen to them. Every question they ask, every lead they follow, we shape it. We play them as easily as they play recordings of our voices. Even informants like Valachi are used strategically in the counter-strike. They provide small truths to maintain credibility, but mix them with exaggerations or false details. The Bureau grows confident in their sources, unaware that they are being led deeper into a labyrinth of illusion. One notable example occurs with a staged shipment of cash. Agents, tipped off by an informant, follow a convoy of vehicles believed to carry illicit profits. Surveillance captures every detail. Headquarters sends excited memos, confident that the FBI has uncovered a significant operation. When the convoy reaches its destination, it is a legitimate bank transfer, a routine movement of funds, harmless and legal. Every agent involved has been operating under the assumption of criminal activity. The psychological impact on the FBI is profound. Confidence builds, only to be punctured by repeated failures. Agents begin to second-guess their own reports, methods, and understanding of the Mafia. Every success, it turns out, may be a carefully orchestrated illusion. Valachi observes the unfolding chaos. They trust their ears, but they don't trust their eyes. They think the wire is truth, but the wire can be a lie. And we are the liars they rely on. The mob's counter-strike is not only defensive, but offensive. By controlling the flow of intelligence, they dictate the actions of law enforcement, forcing agents to allocate resources, divert attention, and expend energy on meaningless pursuits. Every false lead strengthens the Mafia's real operations. An FBI agent confides in his superior during a frustrated briefing, "We have recordings, we have reports, but nothing aligns. It's as if they know what we're thinking before we think it." That is precisely the point. The Mafia has turned the Bureau's tools against them, using their own intelligence apparatus as a shield and a weapon. Every bug, every informant, every recorded conversation becomes a component of a larger strategy, the orchestration of perception. By the end of the chapter, it is evident that the FBI is not simply outmaneuvered, they are actively playing into the Mafia's hands. Each attempt to intercept, to uncover, to act, is anticipated, manipulated, and neutralized before it ever reaches fruition. The mob has mastered the subtle art of counterintelligence without ever holding a gun to an agent's head. They think they are inside our world, Carlo says as he smokes a cigar. But they are the ones we control. Every move, every thought, they are ours to direct. The night falls over New York. Agents sit in offices, wires humming quietly, reviewing reports that are only partially true. Meanwhile, the Mafia moves freely, invisible not because they hide, but because they allow themselves to be seen, always on their own terms. The counterstrike is complete. Perception has been weaponized, and the hunters have become unwitting participants in the game. Chapter 8. Lessons in the Shadows. You can hear everything, and still understand nothing. The 1970s arrive with a mixture of optimism and frustration inside the FBI. Years of surveillance, wiretaps, informants, and analysis have accumulated into mountains of reports. The Bureau believes it has learned the inner workings of the Mafia. Yet the truth is more elusive than ever. In a quiet office, senior agents review decades of audio recordings. Heads tilt, pens hover over notebooks, and coffee cups sit untouched. "We have every word they spoke," says one agent. "Every instruction, every meeting, every plan. And yet, we are no closer to understanding them." Joe Valachi, now retired from active informant work but still observing events, sits quietly, reflecting on the years of cat and mouse. "They think listening is enough," he says. "But listening without comprehension is just noise." The Mafia's brilliance lay not just in secrecy, but in adaptability. They had mastered the art of counter-surveillance, coded language, public deception, and the use of informants as both shields and weapons. Every layer of FBI surveillance had been anticipated, tested, and manipulated. Carlo, older now but still sharp, recalls the strategies that made the FBI's efforts frustrating and often fruitless. "The more they tried to hear us, the more we made them listen to what they wanted, not what was real. In the end, they never heard the truth, only the story we chose to tell." The Bureau's lessons are hard-won. They learn that technology, no matter how advanced, cannot replace human understanding. Microphones capture sound but not meaning. Cameras see action but not intent. Informants provide fragments of truth but are always influenced by perspective, loyalty, and survival. Intelligence is as much about interpretation as observation. One senior analyst notes in a memo, "Even with access to the best surveillance, without insight into behavior, language, and context, we are blind. Listening alone is insufficient." The psychological game played by the Mafia is also instructive. Confidence, misdirection, humor, and staged operations taught the Bureau that perception can be manipulated as easily as movement. Agents learn to second-guess their instincts, to question the value of their observations, and to accept that not all leads are what they appear. Valachi emphasizes another lesson: loyalty and fear are intertwined. Even when people talk, even when we share information, it is always filtered through trust and survival. That is something technology can never fully capture. The FBI also begins to understand that the Mafia's wealth, influence, and operational security are maintained through patience and foresight. Every shipment, meeting, and financial maneuver is carefully planned, anticipating interference from law enforcement. The mob's power is not simply in action, but in the ability to shape perception and guide response. At the same time, the Bureau realizes its own strengths. Wiretaps, bugs, and informants are invaluable when combined with interpretation, pattern recognition, and legal enforcement. The tools are not useless. They are limited. Understanding their limitations becomes a crucial step toward progress. The lesson is sobering. Intelligence is never absolute. The Mafia cannot be fully captured on tape, tracked in transcripts, or predicted by surveillance alone. Success requires patience, critical thinking, and the acceptance that even the best-laid plans may be outmaneuvered by cunning human actors. As the chapter closes, a sense of humility pervades. The FBI has achieved partial victories, gained insight into structure and hierarchy, and disrupted some operations. Yet, the Mafia remains elusive, invisible in plain sight, and always one step ahead. Carlo's words linger in memory. They think they know the rhythm, but we write the music. They may follow the steps, but they will never lead the dance. The city hums outside. The wires still capture sound, the agents still analyze, and the game continues. The lessons learned in the shadows are as much about restraint, patience, and perception as they are about law and enforcement. And for both hunter and hunted, the dance goes on. Chapter 9. The Whisper Never Dies. Even when the room is silent, the game continues. The city never sleeps. Its streets, skyscrapers, and back alleys carry the echoes of decades of whispered deals, coded instructions, and invisible power struggles. The FBI may have advanced technology, meticulous reports, and informants at every level, but the Mafia has mastered the subtle art of survival, deception, and perception. Joe Valachi walks through the streets he once navigated as both soldier and informant. Every corner, every cafe, every office holds memories of a life lived in duality. He reflects on the countless hours of surveillance, the recordings, the bugs, the endless reports the Bureau produced, and the confidence they felt in their intelligence. They heard the words, but never the meaning. He murmurs, Luciano, Lansky, Carlo, they are all gone now, but their influence lingers. The lessons they imparted in life continue to shape the underworld. Adaptation, patience, and cunning are not just tools. They are legacies. Even today, law enforcement faces the same challenge, knowing that to hear is not to understand. The FBI continues to listen. Wires hum quietly behind walls, capturing conversations with perfect clarity. Agents read transcripts, study patterns, and track movements. Yet, for all the surveillance, they know there is always more. More hidden meaning, more coded instruction, more human ingenuity that evades even the sharpest analysis. Every whisper we capture is only a shadow of the truth, one agent confides during a briefing. We may record, but comprehension is always one step ahead. The Mafia's strategies have become a template for modern organized crime. Coded language, staged operations, public misdirection, and the strategic use of informants remain cornerstones of their methods. For the FBI, understanding these lessons has shifted from mere reaction to anticipation, but the margin for error is slim. Valachi recalls the countless moments when his dual role shaped the outcome of surveillance. Every fragment of information he provided was weighed, filtered, and used to guide the Bureau, yet always on terms that preserved the Mafia's operational security. The Bureau thought they held the truth, he says softly. But truth in our world is always fluid. Even as the FBI evolves, adopting new technologies, refining investigative techniques, and expanding legal tools, the fundamental challenge remains. Human cunning cannot be fully captured by machines. The Mafia understood that decades ago. They transformed sound into story, observation into illusion, and perception into a weapon. Carlo's words echo across time. We let them see what they want, hear what they expect, and believe what they hope. In the end, the game is not about being invisible. It is about being understood on your own terms. The streets of New York, and indeed every city touched by organized crime, continue to carry this tension. Every transaction, every meeting, every conversation has the potential to deceive, mislead, or reveal. Law enforcement listens, watches, and acts, but the whispers, the subtle manipulations, never truly cease. As the chapter closes, the hum of wires and the glow of city lights blend together. The story of surveillance and deception is not one of absolute victory or defeat. It is a dance, a shadow play, a contest of perception and intellect. The FBI learned, adapted, and sometimes succeeded. The Mafia survived, thrived, and outmaneuvered when needed. The whisper never dies, Valachi says, walking away into the night. And as long as there are ears listening, there will always be someone clever enough to shape what they hear. The city remains alive, humming with secrets, riddled with invisible battles, and carrying on the eternal game between hunter and hunted. The bugs may record, the agents may act, but the dance, cunning, subtle, and endless, continues.